So I'm Tristen Magallanes. I'm Swinerton's innovation manager, and I've been there for about 3 years. The fun part about my 3 years is that my second week on the job was with Dusty Robotics. So this is a near and dear to my heart project that has basically been my entire career in innovation. So excited to share it with you, and I'll let Tessa introduce herself.
Just briefly, my name's Tessa Lau. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Dusty Robotics. My background is actually computer science. I got a PhD at the University of Washington, and my whole career has been on taking manual workflows and automating them. And so when I got into robotics about 10 years ago, I started looking at construction. This is some of the themes that we're hearing here in industrialized construction really resonate a lot with all the things that I'm excited about bringing more technology to this industry.
So a little bit here about Swinerton. We are a 134-year-old contractor, and we also, similar to DPR, have self-performed services, one of which is drywall. So when Tessa was introduced to us, we saw this as a huge potential win and wanted to investigate more. About our innovation department. So we don't just work with robotics. We're here to really focus on changing processes and looking at the people within those processes. And our goal isn't just to necessarily increase productivity or make financial gains, but we want to look at our field workers. We want to change the landscape of how they're working. We want to change the safety and the ergonomics of their work so that they can have a longevity in their careers.
So when Tristen came across us, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, we were still in the early stages. And one of the observations that I made getting into the construction industry was about some of the archaic processes that are still practiced, especially by people still in the field. And so as I was doing my research and talking to actually several of the people in the room here, one of the processes that we stumbled across was this process of layout. And this layout sits at the intersection between the digital and the physical world, right? We're talking about building off of BIM models designed for manufacturing, but when the time comes to actually build off of those designs, it's still done by people on their hands and knees using measuring tape and string. And so that was an opportunity to develop robotic automation. And so what we have been building is essentially robot-powered tools for the modern construction workforce. We're creating these layout robots that are allowing foremen to build better, to build off of BIM models by bringing those BIM models out into the field, enabling all the trades, not just one or two, but all of the interior trades to build off of that single coordinated model that everyone in the room is already generating, right? So how can you get more value out of that thing that you're already producing, and how do you bring that data out into the real world? That in turn addresses a lot of the labor shortage issues that we're already hearing about, that Henning was talking about, that are impacting everyone across the industry, bringing more younger workers into the field. Some of our clients joke that operating a robot is like playing a video game. And so it allows younger people to come into the trades and actually enjoy what they're doing. It's an attractor to them to get them into the construction industry. And then finally, some of the other opportunities that we're seeing is actually by bringing more of that BIM-based information out into the field, just creating what we're calling IKEA instructions for construction, making it so easy to build because all of that information in the model makes its way out into the field in terms of work instructions, more detail, just better information for everyone on site.
So the picture I have on this slide, I love, because if you aren't familiar with layout, this is how it used to be done traditionally with a chalk line. And I like to show this to people who are sitting in a room full of possible roboticists, because maybe you don't understand what it actually is people are doing. They're hunched over, they're snapping lines, they're using tape measures, and there's a lot of potential for human error. I grew up on a construction sites with my dad doing just this with him. So it's not always a fun day when you're bent over all day doing this. So that's just a little humanization there for that. So when we were introduced to Tessa, there's two different ways we can look at problems. We can look from the bottom up or the top down. So Tessa brought us a solution to a problem we hadn't questioned yet. So when she brought us this problem, we asked, well, is this a labor-intense process? Is it something that requires skilled labor? Is it repetitive? Does it require a lot of accuracy? What's the workflow that is required in this whole process? And are there a lot of ergonomic issues with this? And the answer to most of these are yes. pretty resounding yes. So we knew that we had a space that we needed to investigate and ask more detailed questions. Part of this process for us as an innovation team is going on site and doing things like time studies. We sit there and we actually watch people and we measure how long it takes them to walk from point A to point B, or to snap a line, or to set up the process. It sounds mundane, but it's actually really important in then measuring the solution that were brought. Oh. Can I do it later? Okay. All right. So in our partnership, in our three-year long journey, the first thing we did was Tessa brought us our initial demonstration. And on your right-hand side, yeah, you'll see a picture of what your first robot. So we got to see this first robot. And a lot of people want to be brought solutions that work, but we knew that this wasn't going to be working 100%. And we had to understand that about this process and accept that. Not always easy for people to be okay with. But while we're sitting here and watching this robot actually work successfully on a project, which is awesome to see, we were asking ourselves, well, will it bring us increased productivity? Will it bring us accuracy? And at this point, no, it wasn't going to bring us either any of those things, but we saw the potential down the road. They're the robotic experts. I was trusting that they could get there. We did have a labor shortage struggle. We didn't have enough people that were skilled enough to get out and do the layout for us. And certain markets, we have that struggle more so than others. We have unskilled workers who are doing it incorrectly, and we have to redo it, therefore costing us extra. Then we had to look at, what are the BIM requirements? What are we going to ask of our VD&C team in order to implement this type of solution? So a lot of questions at this point. And we didn't all have the answers, but we saw the potential because they brought it to us in this imperfect form and they put lines on the ground. And that was all we needed at that point. And we're like, okay, let's do this. So what did we do next? What does any good researcher do? Create a controlled test. So our Southern California team partnered with the Carpenters Union down there, and they invited us there. We went in and we created a mock-up room of layout to perform. And we had Tessa's team come down. We had a team of our workers with a QML, and then we had a team of our workers traditionally lay out, and we had them run side by side. So we had, it was almost like you invite people to a race and 1, 2, 3, go and see who gets there first. That was kind of what we did with this. We invited a lot of our foremen, superintendents, operation managers. We invited anyone we could think of down to ask questions, to poke at it, to rip it apart and tell us all the things they didn't like about it, because that's really important when we're helping a robotics company develop their solution. And I know that our feedback was useful for Tessa, but it also helped us think about future workflow that we were going to need for this. This is the second version of the robot with the googly eyes. It's actually printing radius in this, which is why it's kind of wiggling back and forth. I have a lot of videos of this robot. So after that, you're thinking, okay, they proved they can do this, but wait, let's spend another year demonstrating a lot. Why? Why would we do that? Why would we spend a full year going to our yards and showing this robot to more people? The reason is because this industry is still built on relationship building and trust. So we had to go into all of our different yards, our different markets, and build that trust in person. So we demonstrated this robot, we demonstrated it could work. We got more questions, we got more feedback, we got more details. Sometimes we didn't like the questions we were being asked, but we let them get asked anyway. At this particular demonstration, we had a fair number of our VD&C folks present who were able to start to dig into the process of what was required of them to prepare their files to then have this robot print laid on the ground. We had people getting excited about, oh, you could print room numbers on the floor for prefab, or you could help the MEP folks with their layout. What else could we do with this tool? So the excitement starts to build by doing these in-person demonstrations for our own internal teams. Can we keep going? You want to add anything yet? She's like, keep going. Okay. And then our first production project. So this was the first time Dusty came out and did a full production project for us. It's actually a South San Francisco Police Department, and successfully laid out, oh, I don't have it on here. Oh, sorry, dude, 19,000 feet, lineal feet of wall. And some of the interesting things that we found on this is that we were able to have early detection of layout issues versus field conditions, which was not something our teams were expecting out of this solution. So rather than asking RFI months later, the layout's already there. They can send the RFA in and get an answer immediately. The radius layout was really fast comparative to what a person could do. And the field team started to buy in. There was so much excitement in our company over this as soon as this project happened. And everybody started to talk about it, that this was actually where the adoption began, was this project. And then we get to our adoption and implementation phase. This is where we brought in our VD&C experts, our operation experts, and we had our first own internal Swinerton master trainer trained, one of our younger project engineers who's really excited about adopting new technologies, trained at the Dusty facility. He then went on to train 7 of our own internal operators. I'm very excited to say that the first 2 of those folks were women apprentices. So just my own little side agenda, let's talk about robotics as an equalizer for gender in this industry. How many people have heard the discourse that, you know, women are not as strong as men, you know, right? Well, if there's a robot doing it, it doesn't matter anymore. A differently abled person could operate this robot and not worry about having to bend over on a construction site. So we've now opened up doors for a lot of other room for people to participate in this industry that I think is really important in a discussion we don't often have. We have a full-time robot on lease. Actually, right now, I think we have 3. And with our own staff, we've completed 8 projects to date. We have them in Seattle, San Francisco, and Austin. Sometimes don't always know where they're at. At this point, we've fully turned this over to our operations group, and I do stay kind of in touch with it because it's kind of my, you know, my baby, but we don't have to be involved. They've implemented it, they've developed their internal processes, they've looked at site conditions and everything they need to start changing in our workflow, and they've done it, and it's amazing. Let me go, yeah, backwards. I did. Yep.
So what we learned through this whole process with Swinerton's been one of our earliest partners in this. And if you guys can hit play in the back, please. So the product that we have right now is really a result of this collaboration that we had with Swinerton, with DPR, and with our other early adopter partners. And it's been critical to us to get that feedback early and often, because the thing that you see here looks like a finished product, but this product was a result of all of the learnings that we had throughout this entire process of getting this out onto job sites, seeing how it performed, and understanding what our clients actually needed from it. And what we were learning was that it's really about this workflow and how do we automate more and more of this workflow? How do we take out the manual steps that are currently done today and replace those with robotic automation or software automation? And so what you're seeing here is kind of the net sum of everything that we've learned over the past 4 years, working together with Swinerton and our partners to bring this automation into a physical product. So it's really about how do we observe what's going on in the industry, the trends that are currently happening in the industry, you know, more adoption of 3D modeling, labor shortages, challenges, attracting skilled labor. How do we bring those all together into a solution that actually makes sense for the industry and solves a lot of these problems that we see everyone having? So with that, we can take questions.